Savannah Lane is the communications manager at the Turkish Heritage Organization. Savannah, we've been supposing exactly what might happen in terms of there being this discrepancy in analysis from the American point of view, that the White House might think one thing and members of Congress might think another. But actually, the White House has just come out in the past 20 minutes or so saying that Turkey's operation in Syria is, quote, a bad idea. Is that it? Is that all the statement that's come from the White House?
So far, that's all that we're hearing. You know, we have actually seen not only a discrepancy between the White House and this administration, we've seen discrepancies between them, we've seen discrepancies between members on the Hill and the American people as well. It is a very confusing situation. No real consistent dialogue is coming out of this right now, and no perspective we have seen has been consistent from all three of those that I just mentioned. You know, the White House has actually been producing different statements as well. We saw very harsh statements from President Trump saying that he would, quote, obliterate Turkey's economy. Then we saw a little bit of a walk back from tweets, and now we're seeing that it is a bad idea. So, you know, there's no consistency right now in terms of what we are making of the situation. I do know that if there is one thing, we have seen consistent criticism from both sides of the aisle in Capitol Hill right now.
Do you think that those people who support the YPG and are grateful to that terror group for helping the Americans in the fight against Daesh, and I suppose eventually if you're fighting Daesh, you're helping the whole world, because as Mark Kimmett, the former brigadier general in the American Army, called them, these animals, that they have no place in any civilized society. But those people who have that gratitude towards the YPG, is there any way they're ever going to see the other point of view, that actually it wasn't necessarily the YPG helping anyone? The YPG was fighting Daesh for its very own survival.
Well, I think that here the sentiments in D.C. are that we're just grateful for the fight against ISIS and the very successful fight that we have had so far. I think, one, we are seeing that perspective. Two, I think there is room to be able to, you know, inform others of the various discrepancies between the Kurdish groups. I think that there is really a lack of consistent messaging between different political makers and policy makers here, both in in the U.S. and in Turkey as well, to see the different labeling and also the different narratives. You know, something that was also mentioned in the show earlier is that the YPG has had very consistent and strong messaging. They've had a very strong narrative, and right now Turkey is in a unique position to play to their own narrative. So if they are able to be, as Mark Kimmett, who you mentioned earlier on in the show, is if they're able to be discriminant in their actions in this Turkish incursion in northeast Syria, I think we're going to see that they will have the upper hand in the narrative as well. But in terms of understanding this very nuanced and controversial issue, of course, I think that there is room to be able to discuss this, have open dialogue. But at the end of the day, I think really people are so focused on this initiative to oust ISIS, as you know, we mentioned the animals that people really see no place in the world for. So if you're focused on that right now, we are really having those opportunities to bring up this more nuanced conversation.
Savannah, once again, thank you. We appreciate it. Savannah Lane from the Turkish Heritage Foundation.